This is my presentation on China, and I go there quite a few times. I've been there quite a few times. And at first, I went every year to Hong Kong, and then more recently, um, I went to, 5 years ago, I went to Chinese University of Hong Kong as part of my MBA program through the Claremont Graduate University. And we went to Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou. All three of those places are amazing. We were hosted by a variety of businesses who showed us inside their company and introduced us to the type of management leadership, um, manufacturing, and other kinds of production facilities. I wanted to show you a picture of some of the different places that I've been to in China. So down at the bottom, we have Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou. They're relatively close to each other. You can take a train to any one of these places. Um, so we flew to Guiyang and Hingguashu Falls in Guizhou province. And then on last year, we went on a Yangtze River cruise from Yuchang to Chongqing, down the Yangtze River through the Three Gorges, past the Three Gorges Dam, and we went to Chengdu. We've been to Xi'an with the Terracotta Warriors. And down here, now most of the time I go to Shanghai. Um, my husband loves the Marriott in Shanghai, and so we go there quite frequently. And then Beijing is up here at the top. We've been to Tianjin and Beijing, um, and then a little bit farther out to the Great Wall. So we go to China about twice a year. Um, you can see these buildings are absolutely beautiful. The lights at night are very colorful, so that's one of the trademarks of their whole city. If you take one of the Bund River cruises, down here you can see Shanghai at night. The lights change color. It's too bad you can't see a video of this because it changes. Um, the buildings will be a different color every few minutes. And so that's kind of cool. A lot of their buildings have 3 or 4 story ceilings, a little bit different than hotels that are built now. Many of their buildings are brand new because they're continuing to modernize their country. But and you can see most of this is all marble, so when you come in, it's really beautiful as well. Shanghai. So we go to Shanghai quite frequently and speak at schools around Shanghai and the adjoining cities. And we have our favorite hotel. Um, Again, you can see another picture of the Bund down here at the bottom, some of their buildings to the left, and then uh, um, they have all kinds of parks and feng shui areas for you to walk around, which is kind of cool. We've been on rickshaws, um, not very often because I don't think Bob really likes it, but it's kind of fun to have them take you around and they'll take you wherever you want to go. We've also watched many of different kinds of cultural shows and dance shows, and every one of them is different in a different part of the country, so they wear different kinds of dress and they have different styles, but um, they're all very interesting and creatively done. Um, we also like the culture. You know, people drive in Shanghai, but not as many as you might think. They have to take half of the cars off of the road every day. So if your car ends with a certain license plate, you can't drive on that day. Taxis can drive, but you cannot drive. So a lot of people on those days will take a bike or a motorbike and so on. a lot of people walk because it's just more convenient. But you can see here there's a tricycle, um, and um, and it's full of materials. You'd think that some of these people would get hurt because the cars would hit them, but actually, there are for as many accidents as you expect them to have, there really aren't quite as many. Um, and commerce, um, they're always trying to sell us something, so we're constantly going to street vendors and so on. We don't really go to their shopping malls, but you can buy just about anything, certainly anything you can buy here in the United States. You can buy there cheaper. They're manufactured there, and some of the very high quality items you can get for really low prices. Certainly anything with a name on it. Um, Most of those things are produced in China as well. So again, the prices are really inexpensive. But one of the cultural types, or a couple of the cultural types of things that we see a lot is we go to these tea tasting events where they introduce you to 10 different types of tea and explain why one type of tea makes you full, and one makes you hungry, and one makes you lose weight, and one makes you gets rid of stomach pains, and they have a tea for just about everything. Um, and so those are kind of fun. You just sit and taste teas, and they have pretty much the same type of show each time. We've done it a half a dozen times, but the teas are delicious. Also, silk. You can see at the top left and at the bottom, silk. I don't call it fabric, but silk webbing. So they take you to where they have all of the silkworms, and they show you how the silkworms produce the threads, and how the threads get woven together in these meshes, and how you pull the mesh apart, and you create a blanket or a pillow or something. And so it's made up, you can see it looks kind of thick on the side, but when you lay it down, it's not thick at all. It's, paper thin. And so they have layer upon layer on top of each other, which is why it keeps you so warm. It traps in the heat, and uh, why it's so light and fluffy. So they take you around all of their stores and show you all the different kinds of um, bedding that you can purchase, and you can have it all shipped for you. But at the end of the tour, they take you into the place where they have silk robes and scarves and clothing of every type, pants and shorts and skirts and jackets and so on. Some of them are just absolutely beautiful. And we have purchased some in the past, though the silk at these markets is much more expensive, but the quality is really good, and they're things we'll probably keep forever. Also, we go to places where they have pearls, so they have another show that they give people, which is you are given oysters, and you can open your own oyster and see what kind of pearls that you get. So we have cups full of pearls in different places um, that we've kept. They'll also sell you the different kinds of pearl necklaces and so on that you can buy. But here's where you want to buy the pearl items. On the street, when you buy something like pearls, you will not get real pearls. So they'll be like plastic, but a fine quality plastic. Um, so you have to be really careful. They'll say, "Oh, it's real, real," um, and pretty much in these silk shops, sorry, the pearl shops, they are. But on the streets, they're different. Same thing with the silk on the streets. It isn't the real silk as well. Um, Street vendors are everywhere, so there are lots of places where there are street vendors. Many of them sell food of different varieties. I don't have a picture here of the food that we saw um, in a lot of different places with um, skewers of grasshoppers and ants and crickets and other types of insects, but they seem to be very popular. A person will just buy um, a skewer full of insects and then just pop them in their mouth and eat them like they're candy. Um, and they have various kinds of ducks and birds and um, animals, um, rabbits and so forth, and they put those on skewers as well and sell them on the streets. I often just buy the corn because just about everywhere there's someone with a pot of corn boiling, and they'll put those on skewers as well. Um, but I have a corn, once a day when I'm walking around the streets like this. They sell everything in these markets for the tourists, and so you won't have any problem finding some place where they're going to sell you something that you want to buy. Um, my One of my husband's favorite uh, binoculars um, we got in Xi'an. He swears by them. He thinks that they're better than anything he's gotten in any other store. Um, and so, you have to be careful of what you get, but and then you have to watch them actually put whatever you buy into their um, into a bag. So you don't want have them to take it away and wrap it up for you and bring it back because if they wrap it up in the back um, and and bring it back for you. Many times, what you'll get inside the bag will not be what you bought. It will either be something completely different or it won't be the same quality. So, if you're going to buy something, you want to keep it in your hand, hold it with you, put it in your own bag. But I have purchased things there that that were one quality, and I ended up getting something completely different. One of my interesting experiences was when I bought some different Buddhas, and they were beautiful and heavy, and like I wasn't sure how I was going to bring them back, but I really liked them. They were kind of this metal, uh, interesting metal, and when I went somewhere else in China, I opened the bag up, and what I had was full of sand. It was a Buddha, but it had broken apart like paper thin shells, and there was sand everywhere in my suitcase. So just be careful. I've had other things that I bought that weren't completely not even the same as what I purchased, and so now I never um, give it to someone to take back somewhere else. I even bought a watch once, and when I got it back, they took it away and brought it back and put it in some container for me. And when I took it home, the watch was spinning in the opposite direction. So I'm just careful. Um, but there are a lot of really cool things. If you just hold it in your hand, you're good. Um, Fine dining. Um, the people eat buns and um, uh, uh, hot pot and noodles um, often, and so it's a different kind of food together. My husband eats a lot of the rice, but some of the foods are really good, and you go to a really good restaurant, they have delicious meats and so on. Um, but typically, what they have is Lady Susan in the middle of the table, and then you spin this lazy Susan, and you can get to other kinds of foods, which is fine and it's not unexpected. However, what happens is after you finish one whole layer of foods, maybe 10 different plates, uh, and you're only part way finished, they will stack another layer of trays on top of that layer. They don't even take the previous layer away. They just stack it on top of each other. And and that's kind of interesting because it can get really high. Um, at the bottom of the table, you will see that there's a small, in the middle, you'll see there's a small glass with some kind of liquid. The gentleman who is hosting the meeting, you can see him in the back on the lower left, next to me. He wanted to do shots. I'm not a drinker, but you can see, I don't know if you can see the cursor here, but so there's in the middle picture on the bottom, you'll see there's a shot glass, and then if you go diagonally up, you'll see he has one too. Nobody else got one. He had this special alcohol or something, and it was disrespectful not to drink with him. And so I did, although I had to go to the bathroom a few times because I am unable to drink alcohol like that. Um, but um, typically I won't eat a grasshopper and some other things. But I didn't refuse this gentleman, um, and so it was kind of an interesting evening. Um, art Art is displayed in quite a variety of ways. We've been to quite a few shows. You can see some of the different shows that we've been to here in different cities. I just stacked the pictures on top of each other. Um, and so you will see their dance and art and flair, which is beautiful. We've been to the Shanghai Museum, quite a few other museums as well, but been to the Shanghai Museum a few times. And one of the things that they have um, is some of their old calligraphy. And we have done calligraphy classes and calligraphy demonstrations. So typically what they do is they put you in a room and everybody gets a part of the table and some rice paper, and you get your own calligraphy pen, and you dip your calligraphy pen and start writing. And I think it's kind of cool because um, you get to practice the art of how to do the writing. Though to me, it's just art and not words because I don't really know what it says, um, but it's fun to do it and practice, and they're really excited about it, and they're like, "Oh, wow, that's so beautiful!" And um, you can take extra lessons, so we have done that as well. And one day I'll actually know what I'm writing. We've been on the Yangtze River cruise from Yichang to Chongqing. It's 5 days, and you get on a boat that is much like any other river boat. They have demonstrations during the day, and they have Tai Chi in the morning. They have shows, dance shows in the evening, and singing. And they have lessons during the day on Chinese words and phrases so that you feel more comfortable with Chinese. Um, I can say 我的名字是 Rachel, which is my name is Rachel, and a few other phrases as well. Of course, everybody knows ni hao and shay shay because that's how you get around. You say hi ni hao to everyone, and then if someone does something nice, you go shay shay or xie xie. Uh, anyway, um, so Yichang, a picture of Yichang is on the left, and in the middle you can see some of the mountain regions as you were sailing down the waterway, the Yangtze River. Up in the top of the mountains, they have these caves, and that's where they would bury people. And so sometimes they would have them hanging or just as out of respect. And then you could find out where the caves were, sort of like their own burial ground. So you'll see a lot of cave um, burial grounds in the area. Um, and this picture on the right is the gorge that appears in the Chinese yuan. That's their currency, the yuan. Um, if you look at the pictures that are here, you'll see the Yangtze River, some of the scenes in the Yangtze River going down the river, and some of the walkways that we traveled, some of the waterfalls that we saw, and so on. We always had a tour guide. The tour guide spoke English, um, and then they would take us on these long walks or hikes so that we could see some of the scenery and nature along the Yangtze. So we would, sail a ways, and then we would get out and walk, and then sail a ways and see different locations. One of the places we went to on the Yangtze River was the Three Gorges Dam. I really was kind of excited about seeing that. It was a bucket list item for me, just because I had read a lot about it. We went through the locks here, and here, because there are a lot of people that come from English-speaking countries, everything was translated into English, though that is not true in other places that we visited. It's kind of little Disneyland-like ish, because they would have different vehicles or trains and stuff to take you from place to place, and then you to get the good views, you really wanted to climb up 100 or so steps to get to the top and then look over the dam. We've been to a lot of temples. On this last trip in March, in April, we visited probably maybe a dozen Buddhist temples. So wherever we went to a Buddhist temple, and so we saw a lot of them. What's cool about going to these Buddhist temples is that you can, for free, they give you the incense sticks, and then you light your own incense sticks. They give you quite a few of them, so you get a bundle of them, maybe 15 or 20 of them. And when you walk in, and then after you light them, they perform some kind of ritual and then put it in the ashes. We lit them as well. We listened to them chanting and heard some of their songs, and went into some of the places where they were praying. People would leave their food or flowers or fruits, or something else that they wanted to leave for Buddha. And some of the Buddhas that we saw were huge. One of them is the big Buddha in Hong Kong. We've been there quite a few times. The chilies, but they use very hot, green, spicy peppers and spices. So if you're in Chengdu or Chongqing, that central western part of China, the food can be super spicy. So just be careful if you're in that part of the country. We've been to some Islamic mosques in different areas, but this one was on the one on the right is in Xi'an, and there were hundreds of people kneeling and bowing and praying and so on. And they had a schedule outside so that you could go in and pray if you wanted. And this is not the only area in Xi'an, but more west. They've had some riots and some other problems. In fact, some of the people that I know that are there, part of their family lives in Kazakhstan because they feel that it's safer. And there are some beautiful places in Kazakhstan. I have not been there to Kazakhstan before, but Urumqi is definitely a place where there's some growing tension and terrorism and so on. Terracotta warriors. If you look at the picture on the top right, you'll see this gentleman. He was the person who actually found the first terracotta warrior on his land. And not that people really owned the land, but it was the land that he was working, and the country took over the land and gave him some money and so on. So they moved him to a different area, but it just happened to be that the day we were there, he was signing books, and so we got one of our books signed by him. And you can see some other allegations of dignitaries who got to walk down into the area with the terracotta warriors. We didn't have a chance to do that. We were up on the top with the tours. But one of the things that I recommend for you if you do go, that somewhere near the end of this big this one area, there are a couple of areas where they have the soldiers. Um, one of the places at the end, they have a place where you can get your picture taken in one of the terracotta warrior outfits, and I would definitely do it. It's worth the money and time. You don't know whether you're going to be there again, and it's they come out really well. I mean, you really look like the terracotta warrior soldier. I speak at a lot of schools. These are a few different places that I've spoken. The one on the left was in Ningbo, a school in Ningbo, China. It was a high school, and we did that this year. It was really nice. We met with counselors and teachers and students. We had different meetings with each one of them to show them some different types of things about the United States and about counseling and so on. So, ironically, it looks like I'm wearing the same outfits in these other pictures, but definitely they were different years. Um, and yeah. But anyway, the one at the top is at Beijing number 80. They number their schools 1 through however many schools that they have. So it's a little more sterile than here. You know, every school has a number, just like many of the people have numbers and their email addresses are just numbers and so on, which is fine. You know, I've come to know that that's the way they do it, and it's kind of cool to know what school. Typically, if you go to Beijing number 1, that's the best school in Beijing. Guiyang number 1, um, Shanghai number 1. So when I've gone to the different high schools and I've gone to number 1 high school, I know that they have the top students. Typically, their public schools are better than their private schools because in the public schools you have to earn your way in through a test. In the private schools, you can buy your way in with money. So you can see some different groups of students that we were with, and we got to talk to a lot of the students afterwards. One of the students I was talking to in the counseling room is to the right, but a lot of times we'll hang around and we'll just talk to the students after. They'll give us a tour. They'll feed us in their cafeteria. We'll walk around the dormitory. A lot of people live. Most of the students live at the high school, and just during the week. And on the weekends they go home typically. And then to all the classrooms, and we get to walk around and hang out with the counselors. Many of the counselors and teachers don't speak English quite as well as the students. Students tend to speak English better because if they do want to come to the United States, Australia, England, and so on, they have to do well on their TOEFL test, so they're pretty determined to learn English. Chongqing was at the end of our Yangtze River cruise. They have a great zoo, and their zoo is famous for pandas, so we have to see some really cool pandas. But one of the things I really like the most is the Tai Chi. I'm not great at Tai Chi, but I did have a chance to practice it quite a bit, and so it's kind of fun when you're standing there and you're trying to do all the different kinds of movements and balance and so on. They're very good at it. You can be in a place like at this zoo. There are a couple of different spots in the zoo where there are 100 people doing Tai Chi at the same time. And typically it's a morning exercise. They'll go to the parks and everybody will do Tai Chi in the park together. Beijing. We've been to Beijing quite a few times. Been to the wall a bunch of times as well. At the top, you'll see the wall. It looks like there's almost no one at the wall. maybe one person on the another side of the wall, and maybe someone that's on the top of that castle part. But this is the third entrance of the wall. So you really have a choice. Like when you're in Beijing, it's quite a drive to get out there. And the first entrance is maybe an hour away, second entrance is maybe an hour 45 minutes away, and the third entrance is like 2.5 hours away. So it's quite a ways to get out to the third entrance of the wall. But I'm glad I get a chance to do it. There's typically no one there when we're there, so it's pretty empty. We get to walk quite a ways in the wall without seeing anyone. We have a lot of pictures. This last year, this spring, we went to the middle part of the wall where we were the year before, and in that part there are two entrances. The middle entrance of the wall. There are two entrances, so we went to one this time, another one we went to last year. And there were lots of people. I mean, it was pretty much wall to wall people. It's always really cool because people stop you along the way, and obviously you look different, and so they all want to take your picture with you. So group of people have gotten their picture taken with Michelle and with Bob and with me, and whatever they're looking for, they get really excited because they really want their picture taken with a Westerner as if it is some kind of special opportunity. On the left, you have the Temple of Heaven, also in the Beijing area and not far from the city, but more on the outskirts. So you get to walk around the Temple of Heaven and get a sense of that. It's actually a big courtyard area, and there's some other buildings around the area too, so it's a big complex. In the middle, on the bottom, you have the Forbidden City. So typically what happens is you start off at the end of Tiananmen Square, and then they walk by the Mao, and they walk by the government offices, and they walk through this big square and the water, the monuments and so on, and then you walk all the way to the end, and you walk into the Forbidden City, and it's quite a ways. Like when you start on the one end of the Tiananmen Square to the other side, it can literally take you 5 or 6 hours if you're going to go to a lot of the different buildings. So make sure that you are in rooms. The stories about the people who lived there and worked there, and the concubines and so on that were housed in the various rooms. They're all very interesting, but my recommendation is to wear comfortable shoes because it's a long day. And it's outside. When there are a lot of people and you can't get water, again, like that with the water, I would make sure I brought water. Also, the bathrooms are Chinese toilets, so there are just holes in the ground. There isn't a Western. There are typically maybe 2 Western toilets and 20 Chinese toilets, so you have to wait for quite a while if you want to go to the toilet in a Western toilet. A Western toilet is one with a seat. They actually believe that we're the ones that are unsanitary because we would sit on a seat that other people have sat on, and they believe it's much more sanitary to go in a hole in the ground. So another thing about that is they do not provide toilet paper for you. So typically you will not get toilet paper. Bring it along with you. We typically I use toilet paper as like shoulder pads. I know it's kind of strange, but when you're walking around, no one knows that you have shoulder pad toilet paper. And then you can just pull it out really easily. But where, if we have a bag, then we'll just typically put it in the bag. But sometimes we don't have a bag. Bob brings a bag because he likes to bring a roll of toilet paper. So especially when you're on the Yangtze River, there's not going to be a Western toilet at all. I mean, you're just going to get a hole in the ground. So bring the toilet paper and know that you're going to have to squat. Um, on the right at the bottom, we have the bird's nest for the Olympic Village. So we've been to the Olympic Village quite a few times. You can see it also on the top left in this next picture. And we were inside the bird's nest, so we got to walk all the way around the inside, go onto the field. There wasn't anybody there. It depends on the time of year, but in certain times of the year, there's really just not anybody around. Best days are when it's kind of either gloomy or kind of lightly raining, because then you can go anywhere and no one wants to go. If you go in the summer, it's just a mess. We've only been to the northern part of China once in the summer. I'm not keen on doing it again unless it's, unless someone's flying me and I need to go for some reason. So, yeah, it can be really hot. Down below on the bottom two pictures, you'll see that this artist village. It's so cool. They have all these different, I'd like to call them museums, but in some of the places they're all doing their own art. And so you can watch them make art, and they'll make it right there for you, and you can buy their art of their really any kind of art that you can think of. Someone's making the art there. And if you walk around this artist village, you'll see big statues and like creative art objects and food. So it's really fun to walk around. We could spend the whole afternoon there and enjoy it every time. I'm sure my husband would go for it anytime I asked. And you can see we have a couple pictures of him at the artist village playing around. For Claremont Graduate University, we studied at Chinese University of Hong Kong. The companies that were there were companies, and they entertained us. So they took us around to their different businesses, and we got to see inside of their businesses and how they run their operations. We got presentations. We were given presentations by the different people at the businesses. You can see my professor is at the top right picture, and he's on the left. He's actually Japanese, and which is kind of interesting because all of our discussions were around China. And then down below, this is a picture of Macau. On one of our trips, we got to visit businesses in Macau. And then over to the left, you'll see Bob and I at one of the horse race tracks. One of the companies took us to the race tracks, and they took us down onto the field. We got to meet the horses and the jockeys, which is fun. We just nodded and say ni hao, you know. But we stayed in one of these box seats up at the top here, and we got to. It's kind of fun. You get this big box, and everybody stays in the box, and you get your meals. The meals come to you, and they continue to feed you. And they have on the walls on both sides. You can gamble or bet. You can place your bets. It's all in Chinese, but you can place your bets on any of the horses, and then you can go out with your ticket, and if you won, you can pick up your winnings. And it was all this is complimentary on one of the businesses, but it was really fun evening, and I know Bob and I would definitely do it again with a group of people if we had the chance. Feng Shui, we've been to a lot of places where they have really beautiful buildings and their lakes and little waterfronts and so forth. They're really cool. They mix these rocks and vegetation in such a way that is just beautiful, and so it's peaceful. We enjoy going. We always stay in a Marriott, so we've stayed, and we live in a Marriott, so 365 days a year we're in a hotel. So it's not a surprise that we're in a Marriott when we're in China as well. But our favorite Marriott is the one in the middle. You can see the pointed top. It's called the Shanghai Marriott Tomorrow Square. My husband always tells me that he would move to, if he could move to Shanghai and live in the Shanghai Marriott Tomorrow Square, he would. I would do it too. The hospitality is amazing. They have a piano, like the piano you have on the left. There are lots of people in China who play the piano, so there's someone playing all the time, and the music is beautiful, and the really tall ceilings and beautiful marble staircases and everything. And when you're walking around, you just feel like you are in a palace. Of course, this hotel starts somewhere around the 55th floor and then goes up to like the 79th floor. So it's just the top floors, top maybe 30 floors of the hotel. At the very top of the hotel, or the top of the building, is a library. So they claim that they have the highest library in the world. And it's a really nice library. So definitely when you go, walk up there and visit. And they have chairs, and you can, kick back with a book, or you can just take one of the books with you. And go down a couple of stairs where they have the concierge lounge, which is on the 70, maybe 8th floor or something, 77th floor. And there they have food, all the food you can eat, and drinks, alcohol, sodas, and so on are all free all the time. The views are beautiful. And we met with a bunch of students up there, so we just had the students come up and meet us up there, and we talked to them with different counselors. So that was kind of fun too. It took away that evening because I think that evening we were planning on going to Shanghai Disneyland, but we had fun with the parents and students and counselors and so on. The rooms are really nice, and the service is excellent. People follow you around and say, "Can I take that for you? Can I get that for you?" And they're willing to do just about anything to help you. The hotel on the right is just another one of the hotels that we visited in China. All of them are pretty spectacular. Zhejiang is one of the cities that Bob and I visited. They call it the Venice of China. So the waterways are a little bit more narrow. Lots of artists come to Zhejiang and paint because it's very serene and beautiful, and there are little shops and restaurants along the. It kind of reminds me of San Antonio, but San Antonio looks like it was man-made, like they created it to happen, and this is really very natural beauty. But I mean, it's similar. Um, so we've worked with a bunch of different companies in China, banks, companies, students, counselors, and so on. So these are some of the different families that we've worked with, and we really love them all. They all take into us as well, so it's really fun. They have a high respect for people who are well educated. So the moment you're in their presence, they have only respect for you. It's kind of different than a lot of the students here who, I'm not sure what the difference is, but it's very different. They really think of wisdom as being such a source of strength and value in their culture. So we really enjoy being around them. Hangguashu Falls, very cool. We went with some of the people that we work with. The picture in the middle, though, is a person who just came by and he was like, "Oh, I want my picture taken with you." So, like it is in really every city, they get really excited when they can get their picture taken with a Westerner. Some of their bridges and walkways and so on, you can see all the people on that bridge that we walked on as well, because we walked a few miles from one end of the falls to the other. Um, Here in Hong Kong, you can see the group of us in the middle, my dad and Michelle and her family in the middle, and me. And but on the outside, you had a family who was coming down from the Big Buddha, and they all wanted to get their picture taken with us because they wanted to have it on their wall, because they wanted to keep that. Um, we've been to Hong Kong Disneyland. That's a lot of fun. Um, like I said before, we have not been to Shanghai Disneyland, but it's definitely on the bucket list. Um, and it's not a whole lot different. It's small. Sometimes they'll pay for our flights and our tours and our meals and everything. So uh, people respect us and they get excited when they get to see us. And so we've gotten to have a lot of friends in different cities um, around China. So if you're planning a trip, or if Brandon wants to create a trip, or if you want to recruit and Brandon wants to recruit in China,